Good. So, hi everyone. Thanks again for being here. I know we're doing this every week, so we're very happy that we have a good number of you guys joining. We'll continue doing it. This week we're doing execution, so we're going to see how to be efficient while executing projects. So once again, I'm joined with Dominic, which seems to be in a splendid health today. Hi, Dominic.
Hello.
And the idea of today is the client keynote, where we're going to demo you the functionality of client. So the goal is to try to show you a couple of components that you might not be using. It's the execution, so it's pretty down to earth what we need to do here. But I'm hoping you're going to still learn a couple of things. Next week, same thing, execution, but with our customer showcase. So in terms of what we're trying to achieve with the execution part, the question that you guys should be asking yourself and your team is that, are your employees enabled? Do they have all the tools to be able to deliver and do their job efficiently? Is it possible to maybe make their job easier? And one of the things I like to say is, even myself, when I'm doing timesheet, I'm having fun doing it now. And I know it's not the case for everyone. I'm still struggling with several people in our team, but still, the idea is to try to having fun running your business, and that's what client can definitely provide. And in terms when you're executing project on the professional service, when you're committing yourself either on work or on time on the schedule, being accountable is key. So this is what we're trying to do with our feature set and the feature we have in the product. This is a list. We're not going to look at all of this
Should
today. Is there
start
something?
sharing.
Yeah, I should have done that before, I guess. Okay, so this is where we are, the questions, and now the feature. So the feature where we have in terms of execution, and we won't be covering all today. Mainly it's task and checklist, the timesheet and time off, expenses, email extension. Most probably next week we're going to look at it. Kanban, we've looked at it last week. What we're going to introduce today, though, is the mobile timesheet. So those are kind of feature set that we're talking about when we're talking about our module on execution. And the benefits are the vision. It's really to have a consistent workflow. So it's clear what your team has to do. They don't struggle logging their time or taking notes or logging their expense. It's always a streamlined way of doing things. Again, having fun and efficiently, it's words and keywords we're using a lot, and to promote accountability. So that's the whole purpose of what we're going to try to show you today in our keynote execution. So in terms of where we are located, last week we did the project management. So we started with business development with our proposal. We made some estimate, then we staff and resourced our project, and now our project are running. So now we're going to log time and expense. And the agenda for today, maybe I'm going to talk about the agenda and after that the Q&A. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to look at the project assignment, or in terms of list view. And there's a lot of things we can do with list view. Talking about my work, the home page. That's maybe one thing that people don't know. There's several components we can drop on the home page. After that, we're going to talk briefly on the My Timesheet, and I'm going to do a demo on the mobile timesheet that's been released in our latest release last week. And then billable milestone, expenses, and visibility and approval. It's always a question of a process and having the good tools to empower those concept or those matrix with your team. So dashboard is a key point. So we're going to look in that and the approval process. So that's it for the slide. Dominic, if you want to start sharing your screen.
Did you want to mention for the Q&A? So
Oh
that
yeah, coming back to that slide. So at the bottom of your Zoom, you should have a Q&A button. Don't hesitate. And most probably we're going to ask a couple of questions as well in terms of, are you using my work or are you using this kind of feature, so we can know and gauge how many people are using those tools. It's going to help us streamline or build our roadmap for the features. Thanks for that, Dominic.
Excellent. So let me share on my side. share here. So you should be seeing my screen, which is in the same project we were last week.
Yep, we see it.
Yes. So I'm starting from just deep dive, just to connect from our planning and scheduling workshop, the webinar we've done. So basically, to segue on the project assignment. So as we're looking to execution, really a lot of it and most of it is all driven by project assignment and task assignments. We've discussed about the planned and scheduled levels and those concepts here, but for sure we need when we're the other objects we're seeing here is based on project assignments. Project assignments is what is driving visibility on most, depending on your security, obviously, but visibility is usually driven by project assignment. So if you get a project assignment created, that gets a sharing role in the background that gets you access to that project. Okay, so that's a concept that is very central to clients' operation and execution. So obviously right here, I have that project assignment related list. So it shows me who's on that project. Yannick just talked about list views where we can have different list views here. So that's one way we could look into assignments themselves straight out of a list view that could be filtered. This is just to show that this is really a record in the background that can be used or leveraged to get some reporting, to get some also maybe automations if you wanted to, but this is comprised of a lot of information. So these records can be used for several reasons other than
Yep,
being
and
assigned
maybe
to a project.
if you can just come back to the list view, Dominic. So from here, when you have a simple way of operating and you're not using task a lot, something like APR we saw last week, uh, project assignment becomes kind of key because it gives you the start and end date. You can, like I said, Dominic said, you can make automations for, let's say there's a new assignment, then you can send an email automatically to the project resource. And there's a lot of fields as well that can be used for reporting. So it's an interesting object to learn more about that project assignment.
Yeah, so as we see these, obviously we can configure it how we want, but we have kind of an overview on these different assignments. That could be a way of checking also if the bill rates are all good, right, on the project. So there's several things we can use in reviewing and tracking our projects.
And your tab was already open, but can you just open the app launcher and just type on the left the 9 dots? Yeah.
Yes.
So when you don't know and there's an object you want to refer to, if you just type on the search from here, then you can go directly to that list view for those objects. This is classic for any object in client and Salesforce.
Good point. If I just dig in, we've looked into it last time here, but as I was saying, there's a high level that information that rolls up. So as you're executing, tracking your project, project assignment is also something where you can get a good overview on your project, having those total number of hours that rolls up, the total billable and these amounts there that depending on if it was a billable task or non-billable task, these would roll up accordingly also. So it's good object to look at also in that sense. And as we've seen, we have those project assignment schedules, just to recall here. So based on that project assignment, depending if you're synchronizing or not based with your task assignment schedules, this is here really what's going to be used several places, and also what we'll see later as far as from your type sheet. If you say copy from schedule, these are the kind of the information that would be used on that. Okay. So from there, as we're getting especially assigned on tasks, so there's, as we said, if we were to get assigned on task specifically, there's an object that we can use, which is very useful depending on your type of operations. And I want to talk about it a bit. So here again, either we use different, I'm using the console here. So I have that from my drop down right here. Either we get it from the 9 dots, or you have a regular tab related, but where you can have my work. But I'm going to jump in there and show you what it looks like. So in operations, depending, as I said, on your type of jobs that you're working, there's several options here that you can use my work with to expose the task that the users are assigned to. So what it's showing here, really my work, is if you're assigned to a task, that's going to show the task as a card This is kind of the default view. There's others that we'll see. And then we get, a lot. So people that would work on lots of projects at the same time, maybe it's not necessarily the view that you would look. There's another one I'll show just after. But if you're more of a, I don't know, agile approach, or a few things that you can decide which one's a priority, which one's working, that could be a good, interesting way of using this. There's the sorting or filtering if you have too much. So as you start typing, I get a sort, kind of a filtered view here. Um, all those cards here are configurable. I'll just jump out right after here, but these have a field set so that you could decide what shows and what doesn't show on that card. So if for you, it's not necessarily logged hours you want to see, it might be something else. Then, you can configure that. There's a field set to decide what's showing here. In operations, as you're working as a project contributor, if you were to click on task here, you would have a side panel that would appear on the right side. So a bit like we had when we're building the project with scheduling in the My Project view, or the different components we may expose on the project, we have access to that configuration, operation information from that task specifically. So clicked on the pencil right here, opens the right side panel, where we can decide based on the audience or the persona that is logged in, if we want to have that scheduled tab or not. So each of those tabs can be displayed or not based on profile and user. So, having here the details, then we can have some quick access information. See here we have a description, maybe a kind of a requisite on what needs to be completed on the task. There's the high level information. And again, another field set available, so we can have different fields showing or not on that view here also. So you can streamline, clean up as much as you want, or you can put more information also if you want to really have access to any information on the task. It's up to you and your operations. The other interesting bit here, just to bring it back, is the checklist that we've mentioned. So really checklists, and then it's often a discussion that you need to have internally as far as what's a checklist and what's a task. I would often guide as far as, if you need to log time at some point, it's probably a task. If it's more something that I need to recall to do, like pick up such equipment, or stuff that needs to be completed, but each of those might take like just 5, 10, 15 minutes, it probably is more of a checklist.
Procedure, something that you make sure not to forget
Yeah,
to before you can close the task. Yeah.
and
And
that's
because also can that drive the closing of the task, right?
exactly, yeah. That's so as you, and that's a configuration on the task. As you complete those, you may have your percentage complete of your task progress as you complete those, and as you're done with that checklist, you could have automatically that task being set to complete. So that could be an interesting approach also. Make sure everything is done on a task. So that's the
Maybe I'm gonna ask a question either on the chat or Q&A. Are you guys using my work? Is that something useful? And it's good time just to either during the public chat or personally, just tell us what you want to improve. We're in the midst of redoing the my work with the LWC component, like we were talking the other day. So don't hesitate to chat or write a question directly.
So yeah, so about activity, I was here, sorry. So the other bit also that we can have, which is interesting, is the chatter that gives leverage here within this interface. So we can do a post. So that's just a way of getting the information, keeping the information within the project and within the different tasks, instead of having maybe side chats or emails. So it's for you to decide what should be in there. But if I was to be a project contributor expecting something or having a question to be detailed by my PM, it could be a good way just to do an at mention here and say, okay, what do we need to do here? So the instruction would be, the response and the communication would be within the task. So if we need to circle back here after the fact, then we would have that information here. Searchable. So if it's something that we want eventually to be able to track, so instead of looking in several places, the chatter is very good option here to streamline your communication for project related things. There's files also and an email that can be tracked within this. And here we also have files that could be, if you have some SOPs, standard operating procedures, stuff that needs to be attached to a task, that would come over also with the templates. So if you have a template that have some files that needs to eventually track, that could something that could be leveraged also here.
We have several comments. Thanks for that, guys. One comment is about the checklist that it's a bit buried. It's true. We do have, though, a component now that you can drop directly on the project page or on the task page. I'm sorry. I think we have in our roadmap as well to be able to drop it on the project record. So but you're right, we need to expose a bit more, but those components, I think it's going to resolve a lot of the issues. So yeah, you see there's directly on the task now, it's easier to see all the different checklists items, and there's improvement to be done, I agree, but this I think could be very useful moving forward, those checklists.
So, so see, I just typed in here the checklist item 1, so it's just something that is quick add and can be viewed on the standard record page, so the upper right corner.
Where is it that it's going to be driven, the checkbox on the checklist, that the percentage complete, is it on the task itself?
As an option, yeah, on the task itself, it's the way you define it. So I don't know if I had done my, yeah, see this one here. So enable completion from checklist. So this means that as I complete this, I'm gonna have my task completed.
Okay, I think you were talking about fill set. Can you just show us? And if that UI we saw on the right side panel, is it the same one that we see on the planner or the scheduler, the schedule view, or
This is
there are
the
two
same
different
one that
ones?
we would see on my project. So the view that you have kind of a clean view of your project with the tasks. So that would be the same right side panel. So that is accessible when you go to setup. So you go on the other side of the force, as I like to call it, so that you're on the configuration side of Salesforce in the object manager of the client task, now rebranded 39.3. So it's not Crow anymore. We're getting away with that confusion. So that's client task here. You have the field sets. So as you see, there's a few field sets depending on where you want to. So very configurable. So we have the one I was looking at as far as the cards is the Kanban task Kanban. So this is one here that is used for my work on the UI for the card view. We have one also, the different fields that are available on the Gantt chart. So those columns that we can either show or hide, that's something that you can drive. Any fields on the task can be displayed on the Gantt, but that is where you drive that list. And the other one, this task detail is the one that we're seeing on that right side panel when we edit the task either here, so that these lists here, if I wanted to have more or less, that would be the task detailed field set that I need to drive.
Thanks. Another one, I'm not sure about this one. Checklist, the component we saw, is that driven by field set or not yet?
No,
The checklist component? No?
there's
Okay.
no, there's no.
So no checklist, it's pretty fixed in terms of fields. You can always create your own fields, but the UI won't provide it to you. So I know checklist is definitely on the roadmap. So we'll take Katie, and we'll take your note. My work as well, the other view, I think my project view, I think this is more maybe to change the different columns using my work as a schedule. We go to my work view due date. Have you
Yeah.
shown those
No,
yet
I
or
was.
not yet?
This is
Okay.
good segue. This is where I wanted to go. So yeah, as I was saying, that it depends really on your operation. So card view might not be something for everyone because if you have too much, then it doesn't necessarily make sense. And so there's two other views here. View, you have due date, and you also have calendar. So when I just clicked on due date, so basically what it's doing, it's taking the due date, so it's readily named due date, and sorts it by categories. So we have overdue, so anything that is past showing up in red here, or today, this week, next week, and later. So that could be it's kind of good view also. This is the one I prefer when I go to my work. As far as I usually tend to work on lots of tasks at the same time. And just try to prioritize. That could be a good view to look into that way. So really prioritizing
Can you
focusing on the
select? I
due
don't
date.
think so either, but can we select the columns here?
That's a nice improvement request that we might have done in the recently to client. So yes, no, it's not possible.
Okay.
That we don't have a field set for now on
So
this.
we have Michael, our product manager, on the line, so I'm
It's
sure
been
he's
I've
taking
as
notes.
Drake has been requested one or two times on that one. So that's, and then again, click on the task would open the same side panel, would use the same configuration. So you could have tabs showing or not depending on who's logging in. Same thing. One thing I haven't covered when I was at the card view, we have time also. So interesting here where you can we've talked quite a bit on that one, maybe in the past also, but you can start and stop a timer. You can add time directly from here, from that task. So, and that's going to be reflected on your timesheet ultimately, so that at the end of the week, when you go back to submit, you can review, but that's a quick adder here to your timesheet. You don't need to load the other views if you're really focusing and keeping to your work into my work.
Yeah. And it's a good way as well to focus when you're starting the timer, because when you psychologically, you started that timer and you should be working on that task. So yeah, for me, it does help.
And just to wrap on this one here, if ever you wanted to come back into the do view every time you log in, then there's a checkbox here that you can set as default. So next time I log in, I'm going to come in into the do view and due date view instead of the card view. And the other one here, just to wrap up, is the calendar, where in my case, it doesn't make sense. I have too many tasks at the same time, but people that would be focused like resource augmentations or really people that are dedicated to one task at a time, full day or half days on each task, that could make sense here to use the calendar. You can sort it by month, by week, by day, so that's something that could be leveraged eventually if that makes sense in your operation. Obviously, it's a demo org. I have too many tasks to work on right now. I'm really going crazy today, but but for some people that might make sense.
Just the landing page when you're hitting the pen button or the icon here on the card, just to go in the detailed page
Oh,
of a
sorry.
card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tab you're landing on, is it controlled by custom settings?
Yes,
Okay, so
exactly.
there's a few custom settings as well that's driving those.
Yeah. You can either go to detail or schedule, if I'm not or time, I think,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So activity landing on the checklist by default,
I have to check.
another
I don't
improvement.
recall that one. Yeah.
Okay, okay, good.
Good. So I think we're kind of done showing what we could do with my work, at least as an overview. The other way as driving really our day-to-day operation is one that is the homepage. So yeah, as Yannick mentioned, there's a few components here that could be leveraged. I personally have that as my landing page when I get into Salesforce every morning. This is what I look at, not necessarily that configuration, but really trying to leverage that. I think I say leverage too often, but I'll have to find another word. So I'm using this web page so that this page so that I have a good idea of my day and what needs to be done. What's not showing here is even if you're using like Salesforce task, that could even be put on there. But really, we have some components from client which can show you the different projects that you're working on. Here I show the task that I'm working on also. So again, if you have too much, that might not make sense. But if you're really focused type of project contributor, that could be helpful. You can quickly access those tasks from here and start putting time to your project or your task right from there. Also, depending on how you configure it. On that other also component is very interesting where you can have my utilization, so you see how much time you've logged in today, how your week is doing, what is your ratio of billable non-billable. So that's a good, if you're trying to make have a bit more focus to your employees so that they focus on doing billable work, and you have targets set for them, that's something that you could expose also on the homepage. and that also popular approach of time tracking, as we have shown in the time tab for the my work, that can be exposed pretty much anywhere. It's a quick action or a component that we can even have here into QuickTime as a quick action, but we can expose it on the homepage where you can start that timer and select the project that you've been assigned to and start putting your time entries directly from that homepage, if it makes sense.
Again, it's to give the tools so your people can do their job the most efficiently. You don't want to give too much either. So we're trying to streamline when you're doing implementation, so it's really clear where to do it. There's always an API path, something simple, but yeah, it's giving a lot of potential here.
We're showing lots of options here, obviously. The other tab, so configuration of that homepage, we have all projects, exposing the all project Gantt charts, where if you that makes sense also to expose those different tasks, then different projects, so that you can at least view where it's at, the percentage complete. So that's another interesting way of exposing that also. So to segue on my next one here, I do have that components, which is items to approve, that I'm showing on the homepage. So these are all the based on Salesforce out of the box mechanism of approval processes. These are all the items that are pending my approval. But before we go to that approval, I'm going to jump to my timesheet. As you know, we've put some time here on my homepage or even in the task, but there's still that good old fashion timesheet input that we can use. So that's the my timesheet view that comes with client. That's probably at this point everyone that using timesheet with client would probably know. Still, I thought I could maybe just drop a few hints on this one here. So one thing that is interesting, we've seen last week, we could expose here the different project assignment schedules. So if you're scheduled on a project, or you want to schedule yourself, in a sense, if you're not necessarily synchronizing your task to your project assignment, you could decide to have it kind of a manual input. So we've shown that. But the other thing we didn't necessarily cover is that we can configure. We have a certain flexibility there on the my timesheet and what's showing. That column here, location, and probably a lot of you here needs to track where that work was completed. So for income tax purposes or auditing, that's a field that can be added to your my timesheet, so that you can have people and put that mandatory, so that in order to complete a timesheet, they need to input their time there. So if I was to say in this case it's a lookup, so we can use the lookup function of Salesforce, where we can say, okay, I have a few locations. If I don't know what it is, I can start typing. And if these are valid choices, then I can select it and have it set to my timesheet line. So that's going to be added to your timesheet detail, for the ones that are aware of that structure in the background. So it'll be added to your timesheet detail. And if you want, you can push that information to every timesheet split, to every timesheet entries that you might have. So that for reporting and all that would be available. The other aspect also that is often, it's very interesting as far as operations. If you're a PM, or if you're executive, or if you're a resource manager or a project resource, we have on the upper right corner a pick list that can be leveraged different ways depending on the profile. So this pick list here is driven by custom settings, so we can decide who gets what. And where we have three options, we either have a PM view where we can. Am I still sharing? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Did I
Just
take
had my
over or?
no. I just my camera dropped, so I was making sure that it was all fine.
That's good.
So driving here, it's either PM view, so every resource that work on one of the project that you owner, then you could have every of those resource. It could be a manager, so everyone that you're managing could be showing here. So using the manager field in the on the user, or resource, also all resource. So if you're a resource manager, you want to see all resource in the system, you could have access to everyone's timesheet. So that's just what it gives us, is that it gives you visibility on the timesheet itself of that user. So if you need to either put time for someone else, or maybe review or modify on behalf of someone, you could have that type of approach here using that pick list. We've done something with a customer of ours that where they had some resource that they need to input time, but they were not necessarily in the system. So we were, as we add them to the project, you're able to go there and input the time for outside vendors that might not have access to your system. That could be a good way of doing it also.
Good. We had a question about the name of the component I was trying to find out, but maybe we can come back later. But I think it was my utilization component. So Katie,
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to you again. I didn't find it in the few seconds I took, but we'll write you back.
So to wrap on this one, copy from previous week, copy from schedule. These are stuff that you can use. But once this timesheet is completed, at the end of the week, we would want to submit if you have an approval process set so that it routes. It could be auto approved. Some customer would auto approve, but because they don't have an intricate approval process, you want to keep it as simple as possible on, just for business operation, sanity check, you want to make it as simple as possible, but you make it what makes sense for you. Once you submit, it routes to the approval process of Salesforce.
The field set for adding the location, it's on the timesheet split.
That would be, this one would be on the timesheet detail.
Timesheet detail. So Tim, to answer your question, you can create custom fields and add them. So location is a custom field that's been created, and then you add it in the timesheet detail field set. And you see there's the other one, mobile timesheet detail. So so we have the same for mobile as well.
So at this point, you can add custom. You can not necessarily remove, if you didn't want to see Sunday or Saturday, whatever, but you can add on that. So that'd be up to you, Nick. If you want to go and start with the mobile timesheet.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Homeschooling, eh?
Yeah.
The joy of homeschooling.
Kid come in. Can we go outside, play in the snow? Sure. I think you need to grant.
It's yours now.
Okay.
Marvelous.
Perfect. So it's working from the Salesforce application. So in the past, we also had a component that allowed you to log time on mobile, but it was not that good, to say the least. So we've decided to create a new component to drop. Again, it's a LWC. It's available directly on our latest release. So to get there, if I click on menu at the bottom right, I could add it directly on my list here under Client Art of the Possible. Or again, if I don't see it, I can always go with not App Launcher, but all items here, and I can search for it. It's called My Mobile Timesheet. So it's pretty easy to find. And by opening up that My Mobile Timesheet, it's going to open up the current week. And at a glance, you're going to be able to see your entire week. So you see on top that on Monday, I've logged 5 hours, on Tuesday, 4 hours. At the bottom, I have the breakdown of what I did. If I want to go in and for example, add some hours for today, I'm going to click on Wednesday. There's no time at this point. There's a plus button top right. I'm going to click on it. And then it's going to bring me to searching for my projects. So deep dive. And then if I need to log on a specific task, I'm going to be able to log as well on a specific task. And obviously, I can always add notes to it as well. Done the implementation. And then I can save it. So one of the key things we wanted to have here, it was a simple way of entering data, a good way as well to recap what you've been working on. If I'm moving out of that specific day view, you can also see that in the middle, I have daily. And if I click on the project, I'm going to be able to see my time for that specific week, but on each project. And this way you can see differently. If you want to go back, you can always click back on the day and come and edit. For this one, you see there's a lock, so it means that I've already submitted my timesheet for that specific day. There's a couple of buttons. We're going to change a little bit for usability to make it easier to read. We're going to add labels, but that button here, the green one, it's to submit, and I can always recall my time if need be. And if I'm not mistaken, this is pretty much everything that's to be shown here on this UI. So this is version 1. We're going to keep improving it. Usability stuff, like I said, we're going to make the table a bit bigger. I know that APR, Tim, is waiting for a way of easily entering hours for each day on a specific task. So you don't need to, if we recall, they're only using one task. So one task instead of opening up several times each day. So we're working on this as an improvement. So as many people, customer of ours that start using it, we can also add more feature functionality on it. So it's already available on the latest release. Let us know if you need any improvement on it.
We have Madam Benson from Nova Scotia / New Brunswick that is asking if the copy from previous week is going to be available on the mobile app.
Yeah, there's a couple of functionality that's not there yet, like switching to another user. A copy from previous, it's not there yet either. So Michael, take some notes.
It's on the line though. It's on the waiting list. Perfect. Okay, so that okay. So from there, it's the other thing felt like showing is the quickly here on my expense. So nothing specific to show necessarily on my expense, just something that maybe not everyone knows. Now I've accessed one of the an expense report. I'm within one of those reports here. And what I just wanted to quickly show is that component here on the left, on the right side, which is a quick add expense line that can be added to your page layout. That's been added for probably 6 or a year, maybe last spring, maybe. But it's very interesting where you can have a quick add there, just selecting the type of expense, and then even attach the expense receipt and then save. So it's quickly adding. See, I've even been asked that I need to have an expense receipt there, but that's really just a quick adder. It doesn't bring up, it's a lot faster if you have a few of those.
There's less click. It's on the same page. Yeah. You can also put it in other places. So again, it's the component approach that's why also we're leveraging a lot more the standard object and the standard page layout, because now we can drop those components and bring more stuff to it. To come back to a previous question as well, is it possible to drop the my work within a standard page layout? At this point, no, but with the new one that we're going to deliver it with the LWC, you're going to be able to drop it, yes, but not at this point.
Excellent. So that's the component. Then just before we go into more of the tracking, one thing that we felt like would be interesting to cover, and I'm going to jump back to my work to do that, is just to quickly cover on milestones and milestones that can be used for invoicing purposes, as we have mentioned maybe in the past, where we have some milestone payment that could be driven. That's not prep. That one is deep. So that basically, if we have a milestone task that we're working on, I think I called it package just for the example. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, right here. So basically, the milestones could be used into the billing approach, as we could say, whenever we're complete with this task, with the package deployment, standard product installation, whatever is the use case, we want that to be billed at that time. So whenever service is delivered, then we invoice. So that means that we could have a variable or a moving date, depending on the project plan, whenever this occur. But that case, we would be using milestone because it's something that can be live with your project plan. Yeah. So,
and maybe just to add on the use case, so maybe let's say you have some project that could be time and expense, but you also have some fixed fee amount or that needs to be invoiced when delivered. that would be the perfect way of doing this. So creating a milestone, and when you're shipping it or being received, you can switch it to complete. And it could be, you can this way as well handle the full project just with, let's say, 3 milestone: when you're third completed, at 60% completed, and then when you deliver the entire project. So that's another interesting way of just playing around the system with milestone, on top of
Yeah.
visibility of key dates that's coming up, which we're also going to see in a few minutes.
Yeah. So yeah, and just the latter that you mentioned, we have there's a field that says percentage, so you could drive your milestone based on a expected revenue of the project, and you just have 30%, 30 and 40 or stuff like that. So that's possible instead of having fixed amounts. So basically, just it's that whenever we have a task that is marked as complete, sorry, let me just pick one here, and then you drop it into your complete. That task is going to be marked as such. And if I was to scroll down, now it's rolling in the background. We'll have a completion date that's going to be stamped here if I was to refresh. And this is the completion date that would be gathered, would be used for the invoicing part of things. So whatever date it's going to be here, which should be the day that you flipped it to complete, then this would be the date that would be considered by a generate invoice. That can be changed if you want to put it in the past because you flipped it later than you actually did. That is modifiable if you want. So it's just to be able to consider that as you only need to have a milestone payment and have that checked as milestone. So whenever these two are here, it's going to be considered for invoicing. You could have milestone without payments. It would just drive anything, wouldn't generate anything when you do the invoicing.
Perfect.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
So next, if there's no question on that here, the next one would be just another way of driving or tracking your execution of a project is through the use of dashboards and reports. So I'm going to hand over to Yannick so he can cover those.
Yeah, so for me, it's key. When you're trying to run a business on Client or on Salesforce, one of the key mechanism or key tools that are offered to you is really those dashboards. So the concept of a dashboard, there's a couple of way that we can see that, but there's dashboard that you want to look with your team every week. So let's say you have a sales meeting every week, or you have an operation meeting every week. You want to be able to always look at the same data and look if you're hitting your target. So this is going to put a lot of accountability on everyone. So having those dashboards are always key in terms of accountability and exposing and creating visibility on your objectives. So in every aspect of your business, you should have a dashboard. So this one, it's a dashboard for execution. So maybe this is something we look at the end of the week. A project manager will look at the end of the week to make sure that the end of week process is complete. So which bring me to the other main reason of dashboard. It's really a procedure. So standard operating procedure can work well with dashboard within. So meaning like before I'm going to start doing my approval of timesheet, I'm going to open up a specific dashboard that's going to tell me what still need to be approved before I do it and I have to do it again. Same thing for invoicing. You should all have an invoicing dashboard that's going to be able to key things that you're looking for your specific business prior to running your invoicing. So we can look at this one next during the next showcase or keynote. But for now, what we see here, okay, there's data about the project, the number of billable hours. This is pretty standard. What one key thing to bring up visibility, and it's easy to manage. So instead of looking at all the tasks and if it's progressing or not, having key milestone within your project and just looking at that list is going to also help a lot. So here we have a mix of signatures, so still business development, but also go live. It could be key release, so a phase one delivery, so you can word it the way you want, but having a list of what's coming in the next few months and also having that as accountability and visibility to the team, it's driving a little bit more focus on what needs to be done, and also our memory, and we're doing the same kind of project over and over. So from week to week, you can always rely on your data, and milestone is a good way of doing it. So just not for payment like Dominic showed us, but also just to keep track of key time during our project. So to come back to the scenario of this end of week dashboard, so here we see there's timesheet pending approval. So there's 3 timesheet that are not approved yet. We also have like billable amount that's not been approved. So that would be key to approve those before we run our invoicing. There's also a component that you might not be aware, but there's a missing timesheet report. So bottom left, this means that maybe your people are doing their timesheet, but they're not filling their 40 hours. So that's one use case, but you would see a record of timesheet for those. So you would need to have a delta. But if they haven't even started or created that timesheet for the week, you would need to look at something called missing timesheet report. So it's a two-step process. There's a batch that you can enable that's going to run every week to see for the previous week if there's any missing timesheet, and then it's going to bring you a list. So again, to control a bit better, to see who are the laggard or the one that needs to be trained a bit better on the platform, missing timesheet reports can work. And also to be on top of your thing, if depending on volume and how many people in your team, you can always drop table like this. So here is just an example. It's based on the timesheet split, which is the smaller object to keep track time off. I love creating reports on timesheet split. And you also on that timesheet split, because it's date basis, so you can always group by day. And on the right, you can also see the time comment. So if you want to know what your team is doing, you can just have that list, and either every day or every week you can scroll through and maybe find a couple of things that you can see that you can optimize your business. So those are just example, but the fact that you need to have a dashboard to operate your business for every aspect, that's one of an example of those dashboard that you can build yourself, or we can Drakia can help building as well. That's it.
Back to me.
Yes, back to you.
Perfect. So, but then the end, the kind of the wrapping of that execution here that we would like to cover with you is the approval, different ways of approving those timesheets. It could be so we'll focus on timesheets approval at this point. So as Yannick mentioned here, we have a list. I've shown you, and when I was on the home page also, there was a component that says items to approve. So there's different way to expose what needs to be, what is pending for approval. So the report is one home page. And the other thing also that we have is a notification gets sent by the approval process from Salesforce. So you get some kind of a chatter notification. So one of the first way is to dig into this approval request, so that now I have a high level information as far as the number of hours, if it's billable, not billable, and this again is part of Salesforce standard objects that are available. This is configurable. We could decide what's shown here and what's not. It's within a certain format we need to respect, but at least there's configurability here on what can be shown or not.
But here you won't be able to see all the tasks and all the comments, right? So it's just high level timesheet.
Exactly. So yes, we can dig. Obviously, these are lookups, so we can dig into and go into the different timesheets. So there, yes, we could, but we need to go further on that record. We have approve, reject, reassign if we need to flip it to someone else. We go, that's not mine. It should be someone else's. For some reason, need to be reviewed. But these are the different options that you have in your approval process. The other way that we could also review, depending on your setup, is going through again, a bit like we had initially on the beginning of our call here, as far as timesheet. Sorry, I'm just typing completely. So a list view. Also, a list view could be interesting for some cases when you have it rather simple, approval process. So here's a list of items to approve. Really, I'm on the list view of the timesheets themselves, where I can have, again, different columns showing or not, and we could decide to mass approve from here. So depending on some cases, you could just flip those and use the capability of a list view and decide to approve them directly from here. Same as the items, we don't necessarily have all the details that we're looking for as far as, is that in the right project? Do we have like comprehensible and customer facing comments? All those things that you might have to do when you're approving also, you don't necessarily have that information at this point. it's always possible to dig into one of those records, as we could have been doing in the approval request tab, where we would have that detailed information here. So we have the eye level, we have even the detail of the my timesheet look and feel here, that depending on how you configured it, there's a custom setting that could let an approver modify directly, if need be, that timesheet. So that's a custom setting that could be used. So that as an approver, if there's something I need to correct, if there's a typo or number of hours that might be put at the wrong place, I could have access to change it and flip and put it on another project. So that's one way we could have access directly to that. And obviously, based on page configuration, we have access to those time comments here related to the timesheet splits. But again, this is on a timesheet per timesheet approach. And you can imagine, as a company that have lots of users on timesheet and timesheet splits, that kind of get cumbersome, because there's too much to look at, and to dig into each of those, it's probably time consuming. So the tool that is developed by a client to help us on improving is the timesheet approval engine. It works similar to generate invoice or these other objects, where we have a top bar of some fields that we can filter from. If we wanted to look on specific resource or account or projects, we could go ahead and select those if we want to filter down. But basically, it's going to give me, in this case, I'm going to leave as is and go with my approval. So any approval requests that are assigned to my user, then these would show up here. So just hitting search, number of cards, obviously, I only have 3 for the example here, but the hitting search brings me over anything that I need to take an action on as a timesheet approver here. And that gets me that high level information still. So I have those different resource with pending approval requests. And as I'm set up in this org as project specific timesheets, now I also know for which project these times are entered, with a total summarized value for each of those projects for that current week we're looking at here. Okay, or sorry, not current week, but pending approval timesheets. And the current weeks are here. Each line is a week. We can either dig into and get to that same record that we were looking directly at it, but we have some high level information here where we can review those comments. So if it's just to get a quick glance, that's, we don't, there's a lot less click to get all the comments that are related to this timesheet. Or if I wanted to see a bit more details without digging into the timesheet itself, I can get that pop-up window also that gets me that detailed per day information, and I can review those comments clicking on each of those. So it's really depending on the level that you need, the number of timesheets you may get, the level and intricacy that you need to get into in order to approve. There's different tools that you can leverage. And just to wrap on this, once if I'm ready to approve, I can type in my different comments if I need to. I can select more than one here. So I've selected on those top columns, top checkbox. And if just a matter of putting that to approve and hitting submit, and now all those would be approved and flipped in the background. I only remain with this one here. So that's just the timesheet mass approval engine that it can be leveraged uh, to, to treat all those fun and nice things to do, which is timesheet approval every week.
I think there's something it's kind of a game changer when you know you can do it. You have to be careful, but the fact that you mentioned that you can even change approve timesheet, or there is a kind of master control. Can you show us? There's a question. Can you show us where this is being set? And I think it's in the custom settings again, right?
Yes, yes. On the other side again. So if I was to go, sorry, custom setting. So accessing custom setting, there's a bit here that are on the Crow timesheet configuration. So if you were to there's the uh,
There's one on unlock
there's one
timesheet and
here.
approval. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one I mentioned here, self approval. So it's something that can be used if you want to self approve. But the one here that we have, and I didn't have it necessarily, but I'm system admin, so and that setup. But you have assigned approver can edit record, meaning that it's locked. So whenever you submit it to the approval track, it's locking the record, but the approver, so the current approver there can modify if it's a process that makes sense, or
Timesheet admin as well, and I think there was still another one for invoiced hour as well. Is that
timesheet
override
admin would be
invoice?
required. So this is what gets you the capability of when you're in this. Let me just dig into one. Whenever it's not necessarily in approval process, so not locked. You could have access to modifying this. Now it's approved. I don't have access to, but if you have timesheet admin, that means that if even if you're not owner of the record, you could come in and modify that timesheet from here. So that would had those square would be white, and you could change the comments and the time there. So yeah, handle with care, obviously. Something that you can, this is a setting that is localized. So you have some specific customer settings. So it's a hierarchical type of custom setting. So you can have it set by user or by profile. So you can have one that is user specific.
There's even one override invoiced. So yeah, you can
Yeah,
do
there's
pretty
an
much
override.
everything, but yeah, we need to be careful.
Yeah, that's it. 5 minutes left if we have any questions.
Yeah, any other question? I think we're pretty much there already. This was great, Dominic. So next week we're gonna. Oh, can you auto approve holiday time?
Uh, yes, we could by based on the by, it's not out of necessarily it'd be process builder, but yes, you could have it set so that whenever you submit a timesheet, if it is from timesheet from a PTO or holiday, automatically approved. So yes, there's stuff using Salesforce mechanism. We could have that set.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. And again, we'll see you next week for our customer showcase. Thank you, Dominic. It was
Thank you, Yannick.
awesome.
See you
Talk
next week.
soon. Bye bye.